This channel is going to start to feature more readings. I have so many ideas of readings I want to do for high profile cases, famous events, famous people, and situations that occur in order to practice astrology. Now, I am a natal chart specialist. That is what I focus most of my time on. My other channel is dedicated to chart placements, birth chart types of topics, etc. But I do want to start to do readings on this one in particular and separate the two. So, first, I know if anyone who pays attention to the media has heard about the Shanquella Robinson story. She is the young lady who went on a trip to Mexico with her friends and she died while on the trip. Initially, the reports were the friends were saying, oh, I think she was with 4 or 5 friends. The reports were her saying, the friends saying she died of alcohol poisoning. In fact, when they came back from Mexico, that is what they told her family. Her family didn't felt like something wasn't right. They pushed for an autopsy once her body was transferred back to the U.S. And the autopsy found she had spinal injury and many other injuries that were more consistent with some type of violent ending and not having alcohol poisoning. So, because of that, there's been high profile investigation with her friends. Stories have changed. It's all over the media. If you would like to, Google it, find some information out. But before I jump into that, and again, rest in peace to Shanquella Robinson. She was only 25 years old. There's other stories coming out that they stole her money. There's a lot of different things. There's a video of a fight where she was not fighting back, but one of the friends or so-called friends on the trip was fighting her. So regardless of what people think or know, there was some type of intent to target her on this trip. Now again, the details are still going to come out, and again, I'm going to use the astrology to show you some of the different time points of the investigation, also of her untimely departure. So before that, I on the screen you should see 3 cards. I pulled some tarot cards just to get an idea for what could possibly be an underlying theme or message with this particular situation. The Hanged Man came out. Now this deck is called the Hanged One, and it's in reverse. So to me, this is like indicating the fact that right now there is this pursuit of justice, right? There's a pursuit, I believe an arrest warrant has been taken out against one of the individuals in particular, but the Hanged One is more so telling me what happened when she got there. So I feel like this card was showing, and again, when I shuffle, I'm asking for a spirit to give me messages. If I'm getting messages from any individual that was, any type of spiritual insight, any type of individual type of energy, that is fine. I do not necessarily proclaim to tap into speaking to people who've crossed over. There are people in the spiritual community who do those things. However, I have gotten insights from situations of people that have crossed over. So when I'm doing my readings, I ask for spirit to guide me, because this is just the pursuit of trying to get some clarity, answers. And so the Hanged One card to me was like, once she got there, I feel she was isolated. And I'm not just saying that to say it. There was an isolation there, the Hanged One. Also, when I was shuffling, I felt like a warmth and a sun type energy, which is like her going there was like she was looking forward to it. And also, the word new kept flashing up when I was shuffling. And I wonder if there was a new chance with a friend or someone else. It was almost like someone that was on the trip, it was almost like they hadn't talked in a while, or there was probably there was some barrier, but she was looking forward to it as like, okay, this is a new start. It's a fresh start. I don't know why, but when I was shuffling, I was getting the word new and fresh start and all that energy. Then it was the 3 of Cups, which cemented that. So again, new was flashing in my head as I was shuffling. The 3 of Cups is, to me, representing joy. She went there for fun. I really believe she went there thinking it was going to be fun. I believe they were celebrating one of the male friends' birthdays. So she went there for fun. If there was any drama behind the scenes, she was ready to just to go there and have fun and kind of not even be bothered by the drama. Okay. The Ace of Wands card coming up indicated this was a quick shift. She did not see this coming. I don't believe she knew if there was a plot or a plan, because the Wands is like something sparked it. There was something in it. And when you look at the video of the fight, and I believe it was either in an article or something else, like this was over a span of hours, it seems like, right? Like the initial incident, once something was said or done, there was no stopping. Okay. Now, the other cards that came up were the Knight of Cups and then the Four of Cups. I wonder if somebody within this situation is going to get the courage up to tell the truth, because cups mean warmth, they mean emotion. There's a lot of emotions driven here. This story has upset a lot of people. You know, a lot of people are feeling very empathetic to the family, because who imagines their child, doesn't matter the age, goes off to a trip with their friends and does not come back, or is deceased, and then friends apparently had been around the family before. Like this, these were not people who just met. There was a history here. And the Four of Cups shows this reevaluation. I feel like somebody within the situation is reevaluating their role, or reevaluating what they're saying, what they're offering. So it could be that the truth or something comes out through one or two or more of these people coming out, because the Knight in tarot saves the day. The Knight is coming forward. The Knight of Cups is, right, it's attracting something, right? Now in a case like this, it's not about someone courting somebody. It is more about look at him, he's offering something. So that is something just to keep in mind. Now we have some different times here in terms of the Shanquella Robinson investigation. We have some different times. And one thing that I found that was really interesting was how, when we're looking at this, we have to understand the fact of anytime there's an incident, there's an accident, there is a death, whether it's intentional or not, there's a sequence of time, okay? And so my goal right now is to determine what the events were that were happening. So we have 213, then on the death certificate in the official death, the medical professionals especially arrived at 3 o'clock and said that she was pronounced dead. But then there's other news that she wasn't pronounced dead but then she was still alive up until 4:20. So we're gonna look at all these charts to see what could have potentially been going on. Again, this channel serves for me as like a practice of like crime and criminology. I'm a natal chart expert, but I want to get also strengthen my skills in this as well. So when we're looking at a crime chart, we are not looking at personal traits all the time. So we can't get offended if I say something, because we're not talking about a birth chart. We're looking at a particular incident. So the first thing I'm thinking through is, well, Aquarius is on the cusp of 213. Now, also at this time, this is where suddenly they understand the gravity of the situation. Okay, the chart ruler here is Uranus. This is an accident, or this is an incident, or this, even if she was targeted, this is where it's very clear that something suddenly has occurred, because Uranus is the chart ruler. Not only that, but you also see that at this point, not only chart ruler, but Uranus is also opposing Venus. It's opposing the sun. Is getting a little too far, but it's actually opposing Venus. And Uranus opposing Venus has to do with some type of break of a bond, right? This is where there's a turning point. There's no way out at this point. Now, of course, they will later change their story, but this is the moment. And this is saying at 213 is when they requested help, right? So here, fourth house, Uranus. Now they're requesting help from someone, okay? Even with Chiron being in third house. Now, some people in a crime chart would not really work with Chiron, but I think Chiron can help us understand something that has gone, even Black Moon Lilith, I don't have that up here, something that's gone wrong, right? It's something that needs to be healed or resolved. Chiron is not only in Aries, it's in the Aries degree, which means urgent. There's something urgent that needs to be tended to. Mars and Gemini can represent the fifth house. In the fifth house, this was supposed to be fun. This was supposed to be an excursion. This was supposed to be a time for them to get back together and have, reconnect or whatever. But if you look here, Mars, we know, can represent that abruptness, violence, okay? Not only that, but the fact that Saturn, which is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, can represent harshness, challenges, difficulty. Not that Saturn is representative of death, but Saturn is represents limiting something, separating something, right? So Saturn being in the first house in this type of situation can certainly represent, some level of, endings. There's a death. In fact, the fourth and the 12th house both in some way have to do with endings. The fourth house is often associated with graves And the 12th house we know is more associated with that spiritual ascension. Okay. The moon being in the 12th house is the hidden, right? The hidden motivations behind all of this as well. There is an emotional aspect to this incident. I'm looking at all these degrees. Not only that, there's energy in the 4th house. The moon is at the 4th degree in Capricorn. So this can mean like moon in Capricorn is not a very emotional energy in general, but it does have to do with an end goal in mind. And I do think that this is very clear. There's an emotional reason why somebody within this friend group had an issue with Shanquella. And this is at the 4th degree as well. Okay. Not only that, Scorpio. We're not talking about the sign Scorpio. We're not talking about you as a Scorpio, but this Scorpio stellium, we know we're thinking about there's hidden secrets. And the fact that all of this is this, the Scorpio energy is in the 10th house of prominence. So we're not talking about an individual's chart, remember? So this 10th house now in a crime chart, we're talking about notoriety, something being out in the public, things being seen. 23rd degree, that's dealing with, there's a lot of oddities to this. There's a this case is people are investigating this. When you look at the 23rd degree, I don't want to go too in depth of the degree system I use, but the 23rd degree typically is Aquarian in nature, and it does deal with a level of rebellion. Okay. And so I think the energy around this case is they're not, the family especially is not letting this go unheard. They are not letting it go to the wayside. Another aspect that stands out to me is the fact that Mars is trining Saturn. And in a natal chart, that might not be seen as a bad thing, but Mars and Saturn in a chart, we're talking about a crime. This deals with abrupt violence ending, something that is dealing with power struggles. Even if I want to look at the fact of, we're talking about news or them calling for somebody, the fact that it's represented by Aries being on the cusp of the 3rd house, Mars, Gemini, 5th. Definitely to deal with the friends. It definitely has to deal with them having to deal with the situation that is kind of like, at this point, it's bigger than them. But what's interesting is we also see Pluto in the 12th house. Pluto can definitely be devastating, traumatic, something that's trauma infused. Not only do we want to look at where Pluto is, but we also want to look at the fact that Pluto is also creating an aspect here where it is creating a sextile to Neptune and Jupiter. And what's important about that is this money conversation coming up. This $10,000 keeps coming up. So even here, it's almost like, was someone trying to get back money, take money? What is going on? Because Neptune and Jupiter here, it can definitely indicate there is something around possessions that showed up. And this could have been part or, fueling some of the issues. But also here, what's interesting is the ascendant for this chart is, of course, Aquarius, but it's at the 11th degree. Again, 11, 23. These are Aquarius degrees that deal with the friendship group. So yes, even if we were looking at this and no one had found anything in the autopsy, you would even look at this chart of all these indicators of other people, of hearsay. Now, 3 o'clock. So the article that I'm looking at says that, it's on ABC News. It says that medical professionals arrived at 3 o'clock, and she was declared dead within 15 minutes. Now, there is some issue with this timing, because then we later see that 4:20 though is where she is supposedly had the seizures. Okay, so what I'm assuming, that there definitely was a span of time, that this was not. I even saw that apparently when they got there, she was not yet deceased, the medical professional. So this does sound like this stretched over about at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. Based on what I'm reading and seeing in this chart, I don't think that 3 o'clock was actually the correct one. And I know that her mom even said there was some discrepancies as well. So 3 o'clock. So now we're moving the time up. What we notice here is nothing really changes with the exception of the ascendant in Aquarius. Okay, now the ascendant changes, and what happens is that ascendant then moves directly at the same degree as Mars. Now, why might that be important? What might be important, now remember, if the ascendant in a chart, in a crime chart, in an horary astrology, it represents the individual. What's happening here is this is now a very pressing, urgent matter. If she was not able to get help within that specific amount of time, unfortunately, that that was a very pivotal moment. Now, again, I'm not a medical professional to tell you this or that, but what we're seeing here is there is an escalation happening in terms of her condition. Not only that, when we look at these types of charts, again, you might say to yourself, wait, only thing that changed, this is 45 minutes later. But as you can see, the ascendant has now changed degrees, and also the midheaven. Instead of it being in Scorpio, they now have to start getting other people involved because her condition has worsened. And it's now, why that's important is because the ruler of Jupiter is Pisces. Jupiter in Pisces. Now, Jupiter in Pisces as an energy, I have not yet done my video on my other channel where I want to talk about the astrology of Jupiter as extensively as I want to. But Jupiter can, and not just Mars. Mars is more sudden accidents. Jupiter is the passing over. When people pass over peacefully, that's usually a Jupiter type of connection. Now, of course, her death was caused by someone, by her, or multiple people. You also notice that Mars is squaring Jupiter, right? So it's almost like the action is squaring the truth, Jupiter, right? And there's a lack of compassion there because of this impulsivity that you can say represents the friends, the Mars and Gemini. And also here, Jupiter is the ruler, and Jupiter we see is in Pisces, right? So at this point in time, what's happening is, if you look at the chart in a way where you're seeing what's happening over the passage of time, it's now becoming clear that there is going to be more of an ascension, right, of her condition worsening. And again, if you want to get really spiritual with it, you can argue that like when people are about to die or pass over, like in that moment, there's a shift or change with their consciousness. Again, I don't want to go that deep in there. Now, what stands out is this 420 is where they're saying, this is why I said I didn't really think that saying her death time was 3 o'clock made sense when we actually look here. Now, again, none of us were there. We are not the medical, professionals. This article says that at 4:20, Robinson began seizing, which is when one of Robinson's friends dialed 911. So this is where it is a very difficult conversation because apparently it sounds like there was medical professionals maybe on site, or they had to be called at a certain point. It's a variance. That's why we have to look at different times because this is not really adding up. The reason why I said that 420 kind of makes sense in a way is because we're looking at, this is an Pisces chart, and this is where things get diluted. This is where things get unclear, right? The reason I say that is because Neptune is now in that first house. Her ascension, her passing over had to have happened likely within this, because if we look, all these planets that deal with, the spiritual ascension of the souls, Neptune, Jupiter, are now in her first house. And regardless of whether someone's passing is of violence or natural causes, the Neptune, Jupiter need of the soul to still, again, your beliefs may be different, but it's still evident. So here's what we notice now. Okay. Because Neptune, Jupiter, all these Pisces energy in the first house, this 420 time makes a lot of sense if we're talking about her untimely departure. Because what else do we notice? We also notice the fact that, that stellium now moves into the 9th house of truth. Well, why is that important? Scorpio, we're talking about the Scorpio in the crime chart. We're not talking about you, okay? We can't get, right? This is hiding all this stuff. Look at this. The lies begin. The 9th house is the house of truth and beliefs. So now, as this is happening, they're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into lying about certain things, right? You also see the Sun conjunct Venus, which I think can represent also how they are trying to, they're trying to lean on their bond with her to get out of being questioned. So that's why when they go back home, they connect back with the family, or who one of them did, and is saying, oh, she died of alcohol poisoning. Let me tell you what happened, right? They're getting further and further in. But let's focus on this right now, okay? So this is also what's interesting is the midheaven now is in Sagittarius, 23rd degree, again, which we know is associated with this kind of spontaneous. Once they lied, because there is lies, right? There's lies if you're saying it was alcohol poisoning, but then the autopsy shows something way worse went down. There's no way 5 other people, I believe it's 5 other people, were there and nobody knows what happened. They all know at this point. They all know. This is a very, we look at this chart here, it's very clear there's a lot going on in terms of hiding something. We know Pisces can delude, it can cloak something. The truth is now being cloaked. And also, people are trying to respond to it. Now, it wasn't until, again, her body went back to the US that the family was like, no, this doesn't sound right. I need answers. And so this also kind of depicts this digging that needs to happen within this, right? That there's this need to understand what really occurred, because Uranus being in the third house could mean there's truths, but there's lies mixed in, because Uranus and Taurus, okay, Taurus is about foundation, but Uranus we know can be unpredictable. It's not reliable because it doesn't follow a certain format. It's also in retrograde. So if Taurus is in the third house, or there's this belief at first that they're telling the truth, right? But the fact that Uranus is conjunct the North Node can simply mean, but you can't rely on that, because there is going to be things experimented and opened up, which can represent the autopsy, Uranus, the investigation, right? And the fact of even Scorpio being the ninth house, the family digging for information, knowing that there's more that has not been said. There are things that they knew that didn't really add up. Not only that, the moon moves into the 11th house. Moon is in Capricorn. Okay, so now people are, at this point, now again, we would have to look, I'm not going to look at the whole day there, but the moon in Capricorn represents the friends, right? The 11th house represents the friends. But unfortunately, when you think of moon in Capricorn, remember the moon is in detriment when it's in Capricorn. This is a complete removal of that nurturing emotional energy that we tend to see with moon in Cancer. Now again, these types of readings, we are not talking about you as the individual. We need to talk about this as as a sign of what happened during this unfortunate incident. The other thing that stands out is Saturn in Aquarius in the 12th house. Saturn Aquarius, we already talked about on my videos, my other channel, Saturn Aquarius being about the group, what the group needs. I said that before, right? Saturn Aquarius is about, we're going to do the tough things for the group. Going up as well. Let me talk about that. So let me pause for a moment. If Pisces represents her ascension, her passing, her spirit, her soul at this particular moment, right? Now, what also stands out here is if we're thinking about 420. So the article says that's when she started having the seizure. And basically, at this point, it sounds like she was having difficulty breathing, which we know is a Gemini. Gemini rules the lungs. And her seizure could be, seizure is basically, I'm not an expert, but during a seizure, there is this, your body, it is connected in some way to the brain, which makes sense. Not some way, it is connected to the brain. But the reason why it makes sense, because she had a spinal injury, right? And so it's affecting her brain cells. It's affecting the brain, the mind. Again, I'm not a professional, not the one here to do that. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because the third house, which is the mind, which is the thinking abilities, is Uranus in it. So the inability for her at that time to clearly think, proceed to explain even what happened. Of course, she cannot speak, she cannot talk, she cannot tell anybody what occurred. Also, what I found interesting here is the spine. So the spine in astrology is connected to Leo. Can be connected to Leo. Okay, the heart, the spine, all that. And look at the 6th house of health. The sixth sign of health has Leo on the cusp in this chart. Okay, and so the sun is in Scorpio, 6th degree, 6 and 6 degree system I use, 6 degrees Virgo. It was a 6th house. And so therefore you're seeing this connection here happen, but of course, it wouldn't be until she, the family had to press for an autopsy in order for things to really be, the truth to be uncovered. Okay. And that's basically, the last thing I wanted to say. Now, if we want to look at this as this representing her, then that means Virgo represents the other people in the situation, the 7th house. And since Mercury is in Scorpio, so this is a very Mercurian thing. Look at the chart. Like, this is Mercurian. Here's what I mean. The stories keep changing, right? The information is distorted. Okay, so that's not a Mercury thing solely, but we have to look at what was in the 3rd house. There's Mars in Gemini, but you also see that the Virgo on the cusp of the 7th house, Mercury is in Scorpio, 0 degree. Okay, so this represents this kind of mystery around it. This represents this kind of not being forthcoming. But the fact that Scorpio lands in the 9th house means that, of course, If you were just to leave it like this, there would be so many unanswered questions and different, a lot stories that were accepted as truth. So the reason why that's important as well is because Saturn is in Aquarius at the 18th degree, which is a Virgo degree. Yes, these stories are concocted in many ways. There are people who definitely know more than they're saying, and some things are bit by bit are coming out. Nobody has come straight out that was there that night and said, this is exactly what happened in a way that matches what happened. That's why people are on the Friends. It's not like somebody's come out and laid down, okay, this is what happened and this and that. It sounds like a lot of the people who are talking, there's something missing. There's something missing within the story, because if you knew, again, I don't go into that. But Saturn being in Aquarius, yes, the Friends hiding something, and at this pact or this agreement, Saturn Aquarius. Remember, Saturn Aquarius does for the group. Saturn. So they were staying structured to their story. Saturn discipline. Somebody, okay, yeah, we can't tell what happened. Or we all are going to get in trouble. All of us are going to be in trouble. So let's not say anything. Because also Aquarius on the cusp of the 12th house, the hidden house. And we know that Aquarius in the modern is ruled by Uranus. Okay? And if you want to go traditional, it's Saturn. So both Saturn and Uranus are in houses that are considered to be cadent houses. These are the mutable houses, so to speak, right? So these are the houses where there aren't really firm, established things all the time, or things that are more likely to move and change. 3rd house, 6th house, 12th house, these are things more likely to change, right? Third, it's not just that one. It's the 12th, 3rd, 6th, and 9th. There's movement in these houses. That's what I mean. There's movement in ways in which things aren't always super concrete. Okay, I'm not going to go into depth about that. But Uranus even being in that 3rd house, Saturn being in that 12th house, there's a pact, there's an agreement of some sort. Again, this is based on the astrology. I can't tell you. I did not go there. We can't say exactly what happened. None of us can. This is all alleged. But this is based on the astrology. This is what the astrology is saying, which is why I can't put names in. But there are names in if you want to go Google who was there and what occurred. So hopefully, Shanquella is able to get justice. Again, I can't imagine, I'm sure many of you cannot imagine your child going somewhere and not coming back. And then them not coming back isn't because of a freak accident, but it's because of someone choosing or unfortunately causing harm.